There's a viral clip going around right now where Myron from Fresh and Fit was addressing this Christian student, I believe, that was at this university. And he actually confronted Myron around his opinion that men should sleep with 50 women, have all this experience, and how that conflicts with what Myron says about the nuclear family, because how can those two things coexist? And this is something that I've actually had contention with before with Myron, where I actually agree with this kid. He's making a great point. What I want to do with this video today is show you this clip and give you my honest and complete thoughts around it, because this type of conversation is actually really important for men to hear. And I believe nuance and context is extremely important for this type of topic. So I'm going to show you the clip. We're going to watch it together. We will see what Myron has to say, and then I'll give you my thoughts on it.
On the other hand, you also preach that it's okay for men to sleep around, but you also somehow support these conservative values and the importance of a nuclear family. I don't see men sleeping around and a strong, fundamentally sound society coexisting, because in every real life example we have where men are freely sleeping around, that directly raises rates of fatherlessness, that destroys society at its core, at its roots. Children grow up without foundations and are born in poverty and almost inevitably return to poverty because of their lack of a father figure. So my question for you is, how exactly do you explain the coexistence of the importance of a nuclear family, but also on the other hand, men sleeping around is somehow empowering?
It's an amazing question. I've had this exact same argument against Myron's point of view when he addresses these seemingly not related topics, but these are actually highly related to each other. So let's hear Myron's response.
How many women have you slept with?
None.
Okay, you're a
I'm
virgin.
Christian.
Okay, that's fine, no problem, and I respect that greatly. But the reason why I want to bring that out is because I think it's important that men understand, like, ideally, it is, she's a virgin, you're a virgin, you guys meet, you get married, you have children together, you have a family. That's the ideal situation. I wish every single guy could be a virgin and meet their dream woman. But unfortunately, with the way that the sexual marketplace is now and how women are, the average woman is getting far more sexual access than the average man. By the time a guy ends up even being able to catch up to a girl and go on a date or whatever it may be, she's gonna lap him when it comes to experience of dealing with the opposite gender. Now, the reason why this is a problem is because we live in a society now where women don't respect male authority. And not only do they not respect male authority, they're more sexually experienced to give the facade that they respect male authority when they really don't. And they can go ahead and get what they need. And my thing is, with the way marriage is set up in the West, men have everything to lose. So you work your ass off, you make a bunch of money, you create a name for yourself, etc. You go ahead and you're a virgin, you get with your wife. She's maybe sexually experienced. She doesn't like the relationship as much because maybe you're not like a former Chad that she had, or maybe you don't have enough money like the last NBA player she might have dated. She's going to have these experiences in her head and be able to draw, compare you to other men, while you're not going to necessarily be able to compare her to other women. And what's up happening is, since women are more likely to, number one, get bored in relationships, number two, initiate breakups and initiate divorces, where you have all the skin in the game, I just don't want guys being in a position where their ineptitude with female nature from being a virgin or whatever, following God, results in them destroying their life. So when I tell guys, look, I want you to make 6 figures per year, be 35 years old, have a good job, be in shape, have sex with 50 girls, I'm not saying I want you to openly be a degenerate. If you can get by with being a virgin and find that chick, great. But I just know the way women are and the way a lot of guys are, it's just not feasible in 2025.
So let's address some of these talking points. It's funny because, like, when Myron's not being unhinged and going crazy online, being extremely inflammatory, he makes some pretty decent points and arguments, right? I don't necessarily fully disagree with, you could say, the red pill as a whole, but what Myron is specifically saying, I believe these guys do a good job of acknowledging the problems in society, especially how it pertains to problems with modern women. I get that. Any guy with some level of experience or skin in the game with women will tell you the exact same thing. Yes, there's bad women out there. My problem with Myron or other dudes in the red pill is they fail to acknowledge that the solutions that they are proposing for men are actually creating more problems in the first place. Right, so let's talk about his mindset with how the average woman is going to have way more experience than the average guy. There's nuggets of truth in that. More women today, they say in the statistics, I believe it's like 63% of men under the age of 30 are reporting that they're single, while it's like 30 or 40% of women. So it's like a drastic difference. So a lot more women are going on dates or just generally more experience in the dating world. However, that does not mean that these girls are sleeping with everybody. Maybe they've had long-term partners, or they've dated a guy for like 4, 5, 6 some years, or something like that. It doesn't mean that these girls are out being, basically hoes. And that's essentially what Myron talks about a lot on his page, is these 304s. That's assuming that you're dealing with a hoe. And not all women are hoes. I know this kind of like, I don't know how it's an unpopular thing to say, but it's just realistic. You can generalize and say, oh, women act this way, when sometimes they do, but the truth of the matter is not every single woman that you encounter in your lifetime is going to be a hoe. There's girls with good traditional values, and if you're a Christian man, that is the last type of person that you should be dating anyway. Why would you even want to be with a woman who has all of this sexual experience, all of this history with men who did her wrong and who, they used to engage in a lot of degenerate behavior? Why would you even want to wife up a girl like that? So this idea that like you're just kind of, it's like doom and gloom, like every girl just has way more experience, that's not necessarily 100% accurate. There's nuggets of truth in it, of course, just like anything, but the truth tends to be in the middle. They exist, yes. Is that the majority? There's an argument there. Does that mean it's everyone? No, not true. I've met a lot of women, in my experience, that have good values, that take care of their bodies, that don't just sleep around because they think that's disgusting too. Like, not all women think hookup culture is a good thing. I've met them, especially if you're vetting a Christian woman and she's genuinely a woman with traditional values. She doesn't like those things. That is repulsive to women like that. Like, he's assuming that every girl is going to be a hoe, and that's just not the case. Because he was talking about the comparison thing. Like, you wife up a girl, she compares you to, her last celebrity boyfriend or her last super good-looking boyfriend or super millionaire boyfriend. That's just not realistic. Like, the average girl is not getting flown out by celebrities and by these like high profile guys. Does that happen? I'm sure that it does, especially if a girl has like a somewhat of a social media following, somewhat of a social media presence. But the average girl, like your run-of-the-mill girl that you see in like a Starbucks, or you walk down the street and you see a cute girl, that probably doesn't happen to them. Now, again, I'm just assuming. I can't factually say that that is true. There's really no way to prove the latter anyway. There's no way to prove that a lot of women are getting flown out and this happens. Does it happen? Yes, but you have to also look at like social circles. Girls that typically hang out with celebrities like that, they're involved in that kind of scene. Maybe they're people in the music industry. Maybe they're people in the movie industry. They're people in the social media game. They have, again, a decent following online. Those are typically the kind of girls that mess with high-profile guys. That is not the majority of women, though. Another critique that I have is this whole thing with like men need experience and women value men with experience. Yeah, that is true. Like, imagine if you were a guy fumbling around, not knowing how to lead properly, not knowing how to ask the right questions, not knowing how to charge her emotions and get her to feel something about you. That takes skill. I will not lie. That takes a lot of ability. Most men simply don't have that ability because they haven't experienced enough women. They haven't been out with enough women. They haven't flirted with enough women. They haven't courted and engaged with enough women. That is 1,000% true. That's where I agree with Myron. However, where I disagree with Myron is that you need to sleep with 50 plus women to do that. You literally don't. It's as simple as getting a woman on a date, texting her, being romantic and vetting her properly. You can be a godly Christian man and still go on numerous dates with numerous women to vet and see what you like, to see the types of women that you actually do get along with, the ones that actually genuinely feel like they're a good fit, and there's aligned values, there's aligned personalities, there's aligned vision and everything. Yeah, most women are not going to be good for you. That's just the cold reality. However, that doesn't mean you just give up. Anyways, my point is, to be an experienced man, you just have to go on some dates. You have to make some approaches. You have to talk to more women, be a social guy. You know, I saw Andrew Wilson actually making this point and arguing against Myron when he was having kind of like a little mini debate with him on his Fresh and Fit podcast. Andrew Wilson was saying the same thing. Now, he's a Christian. You know, he's coming at it from the same worldview or a similar worldview that I do. You don't have to have sex with these women to know that this is a bad girl or that, like, this girl is not a good fit for you. You really don't have to have sex with them to do that. All you have to do is talk to them, get to know who they are, spend enough time with them. You don't have to be hooking up with these women to understand their personality types or their issues in their life, their mental and emotional things. You just have to ask better questions. You have to learn how to actually be present in the conversation and listen. It's very easy to do once you have enough repetitions. But again, you don't have to actually engage with them in a physical way at all. I believe you should only reserve physical access like that to your wife or a woman that you're going to spend the rest of your life with. It's going to be the future mother of your children. There's a lot of reasons for that. I've talked about that on my other video where I talk about my own celibacy journey. There's a lot of benefits to waiting. There's a lot of benefits to holding out on that and to not being a guy who's just throwing his stuff around and sleeping with as many women as possible. I don't have to tell you why that's a bad idea. Learn how to control your urges and vet properly, because when you are hooking up and having sex with her, this is another thing a red pill doesn't talk about, you're not going to be able to vet her properly. Your emotions are going to be involved in that point. Your inhibitions are going to be lower. It's like drinking too much, you know? You're not going to be thinking clearly because you are engaging physically. You're going to miss certain red flags. You're going to miss certain things about her that maybe you would have thought was a big deal, but now you're like, whatever, because the sex is good, it doesn't matter. That's why it's important to hold off and abstain from that until you're really committed for life in a marriage, in my belief. That's another thing. But the final point I do want to make here is my general disagreement specifically with Myron, but the red pill as a whole, because I tend to talk about this. I'm all for talking about the issues with modern dating dynamics, modern women, modern men to an extent, and all the things that are wrong with society. Like, I am never going to say that that's bad, we shouldn't talk about this, just sweep it under the rug. I'm not one of those people. I believe in addressing patterns. I believe in talking about certain behaviors, eliminating things that are detriment to society, and talking about our preferences and being able to speak about this as men, because men typically get silenced and censored around this stuff, which is a thing that I applaud the red pill actually for talking about. Very few groups will talk about this, but that is something that they do address. However, I do think that there comes a point when talking about the same problem over and over and over and over again simply just perpetuates that problem. Some guys, especially Christian men, will talk about how they hate that most of the church has been infiltrated by women. Like, there's a majority women in churches these days. Men's attendance is a little bit lower. Now, I agree that that is an issue. We should have more men in the church. We should have more men involved in, that type of life, but instead of complaining about the problem and addressing the problem, let's do something about it. Let's create a solution. Now, I'm talking to you specifically, too. This goes for myself. Like, if we have an issue with something, what are we doing in our personal lives to make a difference, to actually create a solution? Because if all the issues that we're talking about with dating and relationships and the things that the red pill talk about, that's great that we're aware of them, but then what? The solution isn't to act the same way because the game is rigged, so you might as well just play the same game. And no, that's not masculine. That's not being a man. A man is saying, you know what, I don't like how this is being played, so I'm going to live my life differently. I'm going to live to my set of standards, more of a godly standard, right? That's how I choose to live. That's the example that I'm going to set. Those are the things that I'm going to speak about, because the problem at the end of the day is never the other person. It's always ourselves. If we keep attracting bad relationship after bad relationship, and all we see in the world are terrible situations, terrible women, terrible this, what kind of presupposition are you bringing into every single interaction? That is a you problem. That is not the world's problem. Sure, that might be true. That might be valid. But because you're seeing the world that way, that's going to influence your behavior. That's going to influence your mindset. That's going to influence your choices out there in the world. You have to be a better man in order to attract a higher caliber, a higher quality of woman. If you want a godly, feminine woman, wants to have traditional values, and she's a supportive, loyal, and beautiful woman, well, those are the same qualities that you must possess as well. You can't be demanding something while not living to that same standard that you also choose to ask for. It's just not how the world works. I personally would much rather go out there and create a better solution through living an example of what I want to see in the world than talk about all the problems that already exist. Because in my belief, talking about it endlessly is only creating more awareness to the problem, thus creating more problems. I would much rather talk about the solutions and live the solutions, because there really isn't enough examples of good men out there in culture, especially online. Myron is not a good role model. As much as I can say I agree with some of the things he says, he's not a good role model. Very few guys in the red pill, if any, are good role models. We as men, I'm talking to you across the camera here, like you personally, if you want to see something in the world, live it out first. Starting with you, because we are the leaders. If we can't as men show up in ways that are going to lead to better outcomes for society and for the world, we can't be demanding and asking other people outside of us to be doing that. That would be very disingenuous. So in short, there's a lot of things that Myron said in this discussion that I agree with. He's not wrong on specific things. However, there are a couple nuanced and contextual things that matter in this type of conversation. I obviously side more with the kid who's Christian who brings this point up. The problems that he addresses are valid, but I don't believe they go far enough with these. They don't talk about the solutions enough. So we all got to be better, myself included. I have to be living the example that I am preaching about, that I talk about in the world. And that goes for all of us. So if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts on this. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comment section. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you're new here, I talk about all things masculine identity, lifestyle, and relationships. If you want to work with me personally, I actually support men in getting out of their heads so they can build a better relationship to themselves to actually attract their ideal woman. I'm actually running an event coming up in July here, July 23rd to July 26th. I only have 8 slots available, so if you want to go through these type of workshops and go through a deep sense of brotherhood and community with the guys that are all going, that all have similar struggles, that all have similar goals as you, a link down below to have a conversation with me, and we'll see if you're a good fit. I don't work with just anybody. I'm capping this out at 12 guys total. So if you want to be a part of this second retreat, this is my second time running an in-person event, you don't want to miss this one. It's going to be in Las Vegas, and it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of deep work, and it's going to be extremely, extremely transformational. Otherwise, man, I hope this video was helpful. I hope it was insightful for you. I'm not one of those guys that just hates on the red pill for no reason, and, you know, I have a lot of things to say about Myron and his approach, but I genuinely see the value in some of the things that these guys say. I'm not like a one-sided person. I'm always against everything they say. Like, there's some truth in there, obviously, but I think they're missing the bigger picture. They're missing the more, in my opinion, more of a Christian type of worldview that can lead to better society, lead to a better outcome for the men and for everybody else involved. I don't think the red pill guys are going to create the solution. It is up to you. It is up to me. It is up to the men like us that think this way, that believe in the same things, that have a strong faith and have good character and care about the society that we live in. Like, those are the guys that are going to make the most difference. Those are the leaders of the world, and we need more of it, because there's not a lot of good role models and examples for men in society. And my goal with this channel and with the work that I do is to change that. Not just for me, like, I don't want to be the figure. I want you to be the example. I want you to be the guy that men turn to and are like, yo, this dude's doing it right. Because that guy is following God. That guy is understanding who his identity truly is in, which is in Christ. And he's living that out fully and being a godly man. Hope you have an awesome rest of your day, man. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.